In the World Heritage listed waters of Shark Bay in Western Australia, the Eagle One is heading to harvest sea cucumbers. What makes the crew unique is that they're Indigenous and they're continuing a trade to Asia that existed centuries before European settlement. Skipper Sean Moose McNear has been a professional fisherman and diver all his adult life. But first and foremost, he's a Malgana man.
Be proud of who we are here, saltwater people. Whittier people, we're Malgana. This place we call Gutharagura here is not just a place of tourism or a place to visit for us, it's our home. So, like anywhere in your home environment, it's really important to look after. We say here, you know, culture first, family first, and business after. So our priorities here are culture and family, which is what we are, but also to juggle that business end of things.
It may be an ancient trade, but this crew uses modern technology to record the wonders of their traditional country. Drones, GoPros, even mobile phones are used to capture and share the incredible biodiversity of the bay.
Every trip we always try and use the technology that we have, the drone and the cameras and stuff, to make sure that we record biodiversity, changes, adaptations, you know, different water movements, conditions. It's always, you know, picture tells 1,000 words.
Divers Alex Dodd and Cheyenne Nassette are Malgana men, but like many, they've lived away from the bay. Working for Tidal Moon has brought them home physically and spiritually.
It means a lot for me to be able to come back here. I was born and raised in Geraldton, so I never really grew up in the bay. To come back as an adult and actually start looking after the place and learning a lot about it, it means so much more than having that respect for it and being able to do all that kind of stuff and learning from my elders and all that, to take in that knowledge.
Tidal Moon was granted a special Indigenous fishing licence in 2017. It's a wild harvest, but the crew try to treat the sea like a farm, harvesting paddocks and then resting them on rotation.
We don't want to take them all from one spot. We know they're a slow-moving creature, so we try to disperse our range of where we're taking our wild stock from.
Although they're trained as master divers, in shallow waters the Tidal Moon team doesn't use tanks. They trawl on a line behind the boat.
So basically what we're doing there is we're getting trawled behind the boat, pretty much like live bait, and we're looking on the seafloor for cucumbers. So sometimes they're in between the debris, the coral, or the seagrass. So it takes a bit of a fine-tuned eye to be able to see them. But once you get the knack of it, it comes pretty naturally.
The catch is also known as trepang or bêche de mer. The name sea cucumber is a misnomer. They're actually an animal.
It's identified as a fish. It has all the organs, all the operations as a normal, I suppose, animal, but no brain. It doesn't have a brain. So it's very interesting. It's a defence mechanism, like squid does with the ink. These things spit all their guts out.
Wow, look at that.
He's under stress right now.
Wow.
And he's going to spit all his guts out, but he can grow it all back again.
And I can feel his body contracting it. Look at that. It's like a sponge that's completely...
He'll go a bit harder now, back to shape.
Yeah.
In the shop, but put him back in the salt water and he's fine.
Tidal Moon sells its catch into the specialty food market. It's twice cooked and dried in a process that can take 10 to 12 days.
So this is where we leave this is where our end product ends up.
The company's Chief Executive Officer, Michael Weir, says the product is highly prized in Chinese cuisine and is thought to have medicinal properties.
These are worth maybe $400 a kilo, and depending on market price up in China, but they do go from our Singaporean buyer into Singapore, then distribute out through Australasia.
Tidal Moon produces less than a tonne of product a year. It's still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic and the collapse of markets in mainland China. It needs government grants and philanthropy to survive. But the company is now working with the CSIRO to investigate new and more lucrative markets for medicinal and cosmetic products.
So we want to try to pivot the market towards the Western market. and show the health benefits of taking sea cucumber in a capsule, a serum, health and beauty product, something in those lines which more is a Western market.
Michael Weir says the goal is to create a working middle class of Malgana people. At the moment, most leave their traditional country because there are no jobs or houses.
You've got to create the opportunity. There aren't too many prospects around. There's only, when you talk about class, you're either on welfare or you're rich. There's no middle class. And you have to create the middle class. You can't create it by any means but a free market enterprise. And that's what we're trying to do, is build a big free market enterprise that can trade internationally and attract more Malgana people back to our homeland.
Just as science on the medicinal qualities of sea cucumbers is incomplete, so too is the understanding of how important the organisms are to the health of seagrass. Shark Bay has the world's largest reserve of seagrasses. Studies in Tanzania have shown that sea cucumbers are vital for the health of seagrass meadows.
They actually fertilise the seagrass meadows, and it's a sort of closed loop. Seagrass meadows grow more, they refertilise, and it just keeps on going. So you get more sea cucumbers and more seagrass.
Marine ecologist Gary Kendrick hopes his research will confirm the same closed-loop relationship in Shark Bay. It's critical, he says, because more than a quarter of Shark Bay's seagrass meadows were lost in a marine heatwave in 2011. Only 10% has naturally recovered. His team from the University of WA's Oceans Institute has been working on how best to restore the lost seagrass. It's vital work, he says, because the exposed seabed contains a vast store of carbon, which can be released to the atmosphere in storms.
So if you disturb the sediments under seagrasses, you're releasing carbon because you're oxygenating the sediment and you're getting enriched breakdown rates from the organic carbon buried in them. The buried carbon in a seagrass meadow is tenfold that of the carbon in a rainforest. So if you measure the rainforest trees and the soils, the carbon buried in a metre of soil underneath a seagrass meadow can be up to tenfold the amount of buried carbon that you find in the rainforest.
The UWA researchers have been working with a local charter tour operator at Monkey Mire on trials to recover the lost seagrass. Sand-filled tubes have been laid on the seabed to stimulate seagrass growth. It's been successful, but progress has been slow. The charter operator, Greg Ridgely, says he spent his own money and has sponsors ready to expand beyond the trial phase, but he's been unable to get a permit.
We haven't got the licence yet, it's all pending still. We're not interested in making money at all. All I want is to get the grass growing out here. So like the loss of grass affects the dolphins here, their food source, sharks, stingrays, everything depends on the grass. The particular bank we want to work on is probably the best dugong feeding bank on the planet. Well, it was. And we used to go out there and look at dugongs like you'd have 40 or 50 dugongs around the boat. Now you're lucky to have 3 or 4 or 5.
Tidal Moon is also seeking a permit to begin its own restoration work. It has more than $2 million available from mining giant BHP for a 3-year, 100-hectare project with the University of WA. The WA government says it's supporting seagrass restoration trials, but it's made no decision on expanding to the sort of scale researchers say is urgently needed. The government says there's no risk to Shark Bay's World Heritage status.
We lose 1 hectare of seagrasses every 30 minutes globally. And we're planting less than 1 hectare in a year. We're not being effective as, managers of the marine environment. And the work we're doing in Shark Bay is unique because it's actually trying to do everything at scale. We've got 7 months of employment for Indigenous employees to get out there and transplant shoots and to put out socks. What better can you ask for?
If it can get approval, a tidal moon restoration team could get more environmental funding as part of an emerging blue carbon market, using seagrass to offset greenhouse gas emissions. It could expand the restoration to thousands of hectares and open the possibility of turning its sea cucumber wild harvest into an aquaculture ranching operation.
What we're doing is creating that human capital so they can actually do both seagrass restoration and sea cucumber harvesting.
It's a big vision, and according to Michael Weir, it can restore the seagrass and build a sustainable business with long-term jobs and economic independence for Malgana people.
The whole purpose of what we're trying to do is create that middle class, and you can only do it with jobs and employment, training opportunities, so that people can actually gain access into an industry, gain life skills, and they stay away from that vicious circle that Aboriginal people get stuck in.